Behind the perfect family photos and warm smiles, Katrina Ashley Smith was living a life that would end in betrayal at the hands of the man who vowed to love her. Katrina Ashley Smith wasn't just admired, she was adored. She had a way of making people feel like they mattered, with her warm smile and easy laugh. Her family, her friends, everyone who crossed her path felt the light she carried. To her younger sister Miranda, Katrina was more than a sibling. She was a hero. They shared secrets that only sisters could, whispering dreams and fears into the quiet of the night. Katrina's life seemed charmed, almost enviable. A loving family, a tight-knit community in McChesney Park, Illinois, and a future that seemed full of promise. That promise felt even stronger when she met Todd Smith, a man whose charm was undeniable. Todd wasn't just polished, he was magnetic. A successful financial planner with 3 daughters, he swept Katrina off her feet with his devotion and his dreams of a shared future. To Katrina, Todd was her fairy tale come to life. Their love blossomed quickly. After 3 years filled with travel and laughter, Todd proposed. The wedding was intimate and simple, held in a small park. Yet to Katrina, it felt as grand as a palace. She embraced Todd's daughters as her own, pouring her heart into becoming the stepmother they needed. To everyone around them, the couple seemed perfect. The kind of love story you only see in movies. But fairy tales are rarely what they seem. Beneath the smiles, there were cracks that Katrina worked hard to hide. Her laughter became a little too practiced, her reassurances a little too quick. Her family, especially her mother Vicky, chalked it up to the stress of balancing work, family, and marriage. After all, Katrina had always been resilient. She was their sunshine, the one who never faltered. Why would that change now? Then came the phone call on October 20th, 2012. Katrina's voice carried a weight Vicky couldn't quite place. She mentioned she had something important to share at their dinner on October 24th. When Vicky pressed, Katrina simply laughed it off, promising it was nothing to worry about. Vicky offered to make her favorite chicken and dumplings, and for a moment, Katrina sounded like herself again. "I can't wait," she said, her tone lifting as if the weight had been momentarily lifted. But that dinner never happened. Katrina disappeared on October 23rd, sending her family's world into a tailspin. Todd, her devoted husband, called 911, his voice trembling as he reported her missing. He explained that Katrina had been house-sitting for a friend, but hadn't returned home. His concern sounded genuine, his words filled with worry, his tone breaking in places. But there was something unsettling in his delivery, something that didn't sit right with those who heard the recording. Miranda was the first to sense that something was wrong, deeply, irreversibly wrong. She wouldn't just disappear, Miranda insisted, her voice rising in panic. Vicky tried to cling to hope, but it felt fragile, like grasping at smoke. Chad, Katrina's older brother, left his army training in Oklahoma to join the search, his military precision channeling the family's growing desperation into action. The search began in earnest. Friends, neighbors, and police scoured the area for any sign of Katrina. Then a grim discovery: her car, abandoned near Rock River. It wasn't simply parked. It looked hastily discarded, almost like someone had been in a hurry to leave. Inside, there were no signs of a struggle, no clues to explain where she had gone. But the eerie stillness of the vehicle sent shivers through everyone who saw it. To Vicky, the sight of that car was confirmation of her worst fear. Katrina hadn't disappeared on her own. Someone had taken her. As the hours turned into days, Katrina's belongings began to surface along the roadside. First, her purse, then her cell phone, and then something far more chilling: towels soaked in blood. Vicky clutched the phone when the news came, her knees buckling as she tried to process the unthinkable. "This isn't happening," she whispered to herself, her voice cracking with a mother's despair. But the nightmare was only beginning. Beneath the surface of Katrina's disappearance lay secrets that no one, least of all her family, could have anticipated. And the storm she had fought so hard to keep hidden was about to tear through their lives, leaving nothing untouched. The night Katrina vanished began like any other, a cool autumn evening in McChesney Park. Todd claimed she had come home briefly to do laundry before leaving again for a final errand. She promised to return to the house she was house-sitting, but that was the last time anyone saw her alive. When she didn't answer her phone or come home, Todd's concern seemed genuine. He drove to the house, but found it empty. His voice trembled as he called the police, describing her absence with what sounded like helpless worry. Yet something about his tone felt overly measured, almost rehearsed, leaving an uneasy feeling. For Katrina's family, the growing silence was unbearable. Her brother Chad, training with the U.S. Army in Oklahoma, dropped everything and flew home to help. Her sister Miranda lay awake each night, her stomach tied in knots, unable to shake the fear that something was terribly wrong. Their mother, Vicky, clung to hope, but her instincts screamed otherwise. Katrina's warm smile lingered in her mind, now an unbearable reminder of what could be lost. Then came the first sign of dread: a call from a local resident reporting Katrina's car, abandoned near Rock River. It wasn't simply parked. It looked as though someone had left it in a hurry. Police examined the vehicle, hoping for clues, but found no signs of a struggle, no blood, no immediate answers. To Vicky, the sight of the car was a harbinger of her worst fears. "She wouldn't leave it here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Someone else did." The discovery sparked an all-out search. Police, volunteers, and cadaver dogs swept the area, with Chad using his military precision to coordinate efforts. Slowly, the eerie puzzle pieces began to surface. Katrina's purse was found first, then her cell phone, and finally, bloodied towels scattered along the roadside. Each item brought a new wave of dread, a tangible reminder that Katrina was in danger. The blood on the towels was the final blow to Vicky's fragile hope. She could no longer deny what her heart had been screaming. This wasn't just a disappearance. Someone had hurt her daughter. As investigators sent the phone for analysis and expanded the search, the family braced for the unthinkable. A heavy silence settled over them, grief mixed with terror, knowing they were on the edge of uncovering something far darker than they ever imagined. As the days stretched on, the search for Katrina took a darker turn. The bloodied towels and her discarded belongings painted an ominous picture, and the silence surrounding her absence grew unbearable. Her family clung to hope, but with each passing moment, the fear in their hearts deepened. Miranda found herself replaying their last conversation over and over, searching for any hidden clues she might have missed. Vicky threw herself into hanging missing person flyers across town, her hands trembling as she tried to fight back the tears that threatened to overwhelm her. Police, desperate for answers, began peeling back the layers of Katrina's life. Her marriage, which seemed so perfect on the surface, held troubling secrets. Friends and co-workers came forward, describing Todd as controlling and obsessive, a man who demanded to know every detail of Katrina's life. The cracks in their seemingly happy union were too large to ignore. Then came another revelation. Katrina's cell phone, found near her abandoned car, revealed a side of her life her family hadn't known. Investigators discovered text messages hinting at an affair with a co-worker, Guy Gabriel. Their exchanges showed a relationship that had grown from casual conversations into something deeper. Guy had even begged Katrina to leave Todd, his desperation evident in the messages. When questioned, Guy admitted to the affair, his unease obvious as he described their relationship. He confessed to pressuring Katrina to make a choice, but adamantly denied any involvement in her disappearance. His alibi, corroborated by his co-workers, placed him at work the night Katrina vanished, but his connection to her introduced a disturbing possibility. Could his obsession have gone too far? As if things couldn't get more unsettling, another suspect emerged, a teenage boy from Katrina's church who had once been infatuated with her. Katrina had confided in friends that he'd spied on her through her bedroom window, leaving her feeling unsafe. But the boy had since moved away for college, and when police tracked him down, his alibi cleared him of suspicion. The investigation zeroed in on two key figures, Todd and Guy. The tension only grew when forensic tests on Katrina's car revealed traces of blood in the trunk. Luminol testing illuminated the chilling truth. The blood was Katrina's. This discovery shifted the case from a missing person to a full-blown homicide investigation. For Katrina's family, the revelations were devastating. The perfect image they once held of her life had shattered, replaced by a dark and haunting reality. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they painted was more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. With every piece of evidence, Katrina's case grew more sinister. The blood found in her car's trunk confirmed what her family had feared. This was no longer a search for a missing woman. It was a hunt for her killer. As the investigation deepened, so did the fractures within Katrina's family. The revelation of her affair was painful enough, but it raised even more troubling questions about Todd, the man they had trusted. Investigators began unearthing details that painted Todd in a chilling light. Friends and co-workers described him as controlling, a man who insisted on knowing every move Katrina made. Worse, Katrina had recently confided in friends that she was considering a divorce. Just a day before she disappeared, she'd met with a divorce attorney, a decision that sent shockwaves through her family when it came to light. For Vicky, who had seen Todd as the ideal son-in-law, the betrayal was incomprehensible. How could we have been so blind? She whispered through tears, her voice heavy with disbelief. The case took an even darker turn when investigators linked Todd to a humiliating incident at Katrina's workplace. 2 weeks before her disappearance, employees had witnessed a black Volkswagen Jetta speeding through the parking lot, scattering flyers that exposed Katrina's affair with Guy Gabriel. The event had been a public spectacle, shaming Katrina in front of her colleagues. At the time, the culprit was unknown, but as the investigation unfolded, police discovered that Todd had test-driven a car matching that description just days before the incident. The timing and his behavior raised troubling questions about the lengths he might go to assert control. Katrina's family struggled to reconcile the man they knew with the evidence piling up against him. Miranda stayed close to their mother, trying to provide comfort as Vicky's trust in Todd unraveled. "He was supposed to love her," Vicky muttered, her hands trembling as the weight of the revelations pressed down on her. The breakthrough came when police executed a search warrant at Todd and Katrina's shared home. Hidden in the garage was a baseball bat, its surface stained with what appeared to be blood. Forensic tests confirmed the worst. It was Katrina's. The bat, paired with blood evidence found under a vehicle, painted a horrifying picture of what had likely occurred the night she disappeared. Todd's carefully constructed image began to crumble. What had seemed like grief was now viewed as a calculated act. Investigators suspected that Katrina's decision to leave, and the financial security she provided, had pushed Todd over the edge. Fueled by desperation and rage, he had taken matters into his own hands. The search for Katrina ended in heartbreak on a cold November day. Nearly 3 weeks after she disappeared, a fisherman near Rock River noticed something tangled in the debris along the bank. As he moved closer, dread crept over him. It wasn't just debris, it was a body. His shaking hands made the call to police, and within moments, emergency crews rushed to the scene. The fire department carefully recovered the remains, but weeks in the water had left them unrecognizable. Despite this, Katrina's family knew. Deep down, Vicky felt it in her chest, the kind of pain that only a mother could feel. The waiting was torturous, but soon the autopsy confirmed what they feared. Using dental records, the medical examiner identified the body as Katrina Smith. The news broke Katrina's family. Vicky collapsed into Miranda's arms, sobbing uncontrollably, while Chad stood frozen, his military strength unable to shield him from the weight of this loss. The details of the autopsy were more horrifying than they could bear. Katrina had been killed by blunt force trauma to the head. The brutality of her death felt incomprehensible, leaving the family shattered. Investigators began to piece together what they believed happened on the night Katrina disappeared. The evidence painted a chilling picture. Todd, enraged by Katrina's plans to leave him, had attacked her in their garage with the baseball bat. The injuries were fatal. What followed was cold and calculated. Todd had moved Katrina's lifeless body into the trunk of her car, driven her to Rock River under the cover of darkness, and discarded her off the bridge into the cold water below. The evidence against Todd continued to pile up. Forensic analysis of the bloodstains on the baseball bat and under his vehicle matched Katrina's DNA. Witnesses had reported seeing Todd's car near Rock River that night, further solidifying the timeline. Each detail pulled the case into sharper focus, and every clue pointed directly at Todd Smith. For Katrina's family, her death was already devastating, but learning that Todd, someone they had trusted, someone who had shared their lives, was her killer, introduced a new kind of pain. Vicky's anguish boiled over as she cried, "How could he do this to her? To us?" Her voice trembled with the weight of betrayal, as if the man they had once welcomed into their family had not only destroyed Katrina's life, but their own as well. As the case against Todd grew stronger, the carefully constructed mask of grief he had worn in public began to crack. To Katrina's family, he had been a loving husband and devoted stepfather, a man who seemed to cherish her. But the Todd Smith they thought they knew was unraveling, replaced by someone far darker. The mounting evidence didn't just expose the physical acts. It revealed a cold and calculated mind behind them. Detectives uncovered the crumbling state of Todd's financial planning business. Once thriving, it was now mired in legal troubles and on the verge of collapse. Katrina, the primary breadwinner, had been his lifeline. If she left him, as she had been planning, Todd faced not just emotional loss, but financial ruin. Investigators began to suspect that his motive wasn't simply rage. It was desperation. Losing Katrina meant losing everything. The revelations didn't stop there. Investigators traced the cruel, humiliating flyers that had been scattered at Katrina's workplace back to Todd. The black Volkswagen Jetta used in the incident was the same model Todd had recently test-driven. It was a deliberate act of malice, intended to shame Katrina and her lover, Guy Gabriel. This revelation transformed the image of Todd as a grieving husband into something much darker, a man capable of vindictive and premeditated cruelty. With the evidence mounting, the police arrested Todd Smith. Katrina's family, already shattered by her death, now faced an even more harrowing truth. The man they had trusted, the man they had embraced as part of their family, was the one responsible. Vicky's heartbreak turned into raw anger. "We trusted him with her life," she said, her voice breaking as tears streamed down her face. "And he took it away." Even in custody, Todd maintained his innocence. In front of the cameras, he wept, playing the part of a devastated husband, desperate for answers. But the facade couldn't withstand the weight of the evidence against him. Forensic analysis, eyewitness accounts, and Todd's own actions painted a damning picture of a man who had meticulously planned and carried out his wife's murder. The prosecution's theory was chilling. On the night of Katrina's disappearance, they argued, Todd had coaxed her into the garage under the pretense of discussing their separation. But when Katrina made it clear that she was leaving for good, something in him snapped. In a fit of rage, he struck her with the baseball bat, killing her. What followed was cold and calculated. He cleaned the scene, loaded Katrina's body into the trunk, and drove to Rock River, where he discarded her in the water, believing he could erase the evidence and evade justice. But justice was closing in. And the truth about Todd Smith, a man once seen as a doting husband, was now undeniable. Todd Smith's trial, which began in January 2017, captivated the tight-knit community of Machesney Park. The town that once admired Todd and Katrina as the picture-perfect couple now stood outside the courthouse, hungry for justice. Inside, the prosecution unfolded a story so chilling that even those who had suspected Todd found themselves shaken. For Katrina's family, each day of the trial was a slow, painful reminder of the nightmare they were living, but their resolve to see Todd held accountable never wavered. The prosecution wasted no time laying out their devastating theory. They painted Todd as a man consumed by jealousy and financial ruin, whose desperation turned to violence. Katrina's decision to meet with a divorce attorney the day before her disappearance was, they argued, the final spark that ignited his fury. Evidence of their separation, Katrina's move to a friend's condo, and Todd's increasingly erratic behavior painted a stark picture of a man on the edge. The bloodied baseball bat found in Todd's garage became the cornerstone of their case. Forensic experts detailed how the patterns of blood on the bat and the stains beneath the vehicle matched the injuries Katrina had suffered. Luminol testing illuminated a gruesome trail of evidence, depicting a struggle so violent it left the jury visibly shaken. The timeline the prosecution pieced together left no room for doubt. Witnesses had seen Todd's car near Rock River on the night of Katrina's disappearance, and the humiliating flyer incident at her workplace underscored his controlling, vengeful nature. These details created a compelling narrative of how Todd's obsessions spiraled into murder. Todd's defense, however, clung to his carefully crafted image as a grieving husband. They argued that there was no definitive proof connecting him to Katrina's murder, and attempted to redirect suspicion toward her lover, Guy Gabriel. But Guy's alibi, corroborated by multiple sources, proved unshakable. When the prosecution revealed text messages between Katrina and Todd, it became clear that Todd's possessiveness had grown as Katrina sought her independence, exposing the dark dynamics of their relationship. Throughout the trial, Katrina's family sat quietly, their grief palpable. Vicky often held Miranda's hand tightly, her knuckles white as she listened to the autopsy details and stared at photos of the blood-stained bat. The unbearable pain of reliving Katrina's final moments was tempered only by their hope that justice would prevail. The turning point came when Todd's financial troubles were laid bare. The jury learned that Todd's entire life, his home, his business, and even his daughter's well-being, was tethered to Katrina's income and support. If she left him, Todd would lose everything. This, combined with the overwhelming physical evidence, shattered any illusion of innocence. The case against Todd was clear, and the verdict now felt inevitable. After weeks of gut-wrenching testimony and damning evidence, the case was handed over to the jury. The courtroom was heavy with silence, the kind that makes every second stretch unbearably. Katrina's family sat frozen, their thoughts racing. Vicky clutched her hands tightly, replaying memories of her daughter's laughter, her dreams, and the unspeakable way her life had ended. Beside her, Miranda sat rigid, her jaw clenched as if bracing herself for the verdict. Chad, outwardly stoic, betrayed his tension through his trembling hands, his military composure barely holding. When the jury returned, the air in the room was electric, every breath held in anticipation. The foreperson rose, and the words that followed felt like a punch to the chest and a breath of relief all at once. Todd Smith was guilty of first-degree murder and concealment of a homicidal death. The weight of those words struck Katrina's family hard. Justice, while bittersweet, had been delivered. Todd sat motionless, his mask of grief shattered under the harsh light of truth. The man, who had once publicly wept for his wife, now faced the reality of his actions. He was sentenced to 55 years in prison for murder, and an additional 4 years for concealing her death, ensuring he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. The courtroom buzzed with emotion, relief, sorrow, and a quiet acknowledgement that, though Katrina was gone, her story had reached its rightful end. For Vicky, the verdict brought little solace. The man she had once trusted with her daughter's life had betrayed them all. "I'll never forgive him," she whispered, tears running freely down her face. "He didn't just take her, he destroyed all of us." The pain of losing Katrina remained sharp, the knowledge of Todd's betrayal a fresh wound. Outside the courthouse, reporters and onlookers swarmed for a statement. Vicky spoke briefly, her voice steady despite the storm within. "Katrina was a light, and that light was stolen from us. But today, we honor her by ensuring that the man who took her will never hurt anyone else." Her words echoed with quiet strength, a mother's resolve to protect her daughter's memory. In the weeks that followed, the family began the slow, agonizing process of healing. They leaned on each other, finding strength in shared memories of Katrina's warmth and love. They launched a foundation in her name, dedicated to helping victims of domestic violence, an effort they knew Katrina would have championed. But the shadows of her loss lingered. Miranda often found herself staring at Katrina's photographs, searching for signs she might have missed. Vicky, sleepless in the quiet hours of the night, sometimes thought she heard Katrina's laughter echoing through the house. And Chad, though composed on the surface, would disappear for long drives, his grief seeking solace in the open road. Katrina's story became more than a tragedy. It became a lesson, a haunting reminder of how love, twisted by control and desperation, can turn into something dark and deadly. In McChesney Park, her name became a symbol of resilience and justice, a testament to the fight to protect those we love, even when it's too late. As the years passed, Katrina Smith's story remained etched in the hearts of those who knew her, and even those who didn't. Her death, though tragic, became a stark reminder of the hidden dangers that can exist behind seemingly perfect lives. While Todd Smith languished in the cold confines of a prison cell, Katrina's family channeled their grief into something greater, determined that her death would not be in vain. Katrina's family, shattered by her loss, channeled their grief into raising awareness about the silent dangers of controlling relationships. Vicky, Katrina's mother, became a voice of caution in her community, often sharing her daughter's story to highlight the importance of recognizing warning signs in abusive situations. Miranda, deeply shaped by the tragedy, found strength in helping others understand the value of speaking out and seeking help before it's too late. Still, the pain of losing Katrina never truly left them. Holidays were the hardest, the silence at the dinner table a sharp contrast to the warmth and laughter she once brought. On quiet evenings, her absence was felt in the small ways, a memory triggered by the sight of her favorite chair or the sound of a song she loved. Yet, despite the ache, her family carried on, determined to honor her life with every step they took. Katrina's story became more than a tale of tragedy. It was a call to action, a reminder of the silent battles many face behind closed doors and the catastrophic consequences of unchecked control and anger. Her legacy became a beacon of hope for those feeling trapped, urging them to find the strength to break free. And so, Katrina's light, though dimmed, never faded. It continued to shine in the hearts of her family and community, a testament to the enduring strength of love and the resolve to create something meaningful out of unimaginable darkness. If Katrina's story touched you, let her legacy inspire change. Share this story to raise awareness, support survivors of domestic violence, and remember to cherish those you love. Together, we can make a difference.